Call this meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome back, everyone. This is our first regular council meeting this fall after a lovely warm summer, and I hope everyone in the gallery there enjoyed their summer as much as we did the break. So Scugog is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. Today, we acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic Indigenous connection to this land and recognize the contributions First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, our province, and country as a whole. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on this agenda? Seeing none. Announcements from council? No announcements from council. Well, we celebrated the 50th anniversary today of the Hospital Auxiliaries Camille's gift shop, and it was very well attended, and Camille herself was there today, so that was really nice. She's a lady who is in her 90s, but she was very pleased to be there today, and some of the volunteers, there's one in particular that is getting up there too, and she's at the hospital every week, so that was pretty exciting. Any other announcements from council? Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to remind everyone that the active transportation survey is still open and available until the end of the month, so if anyone knows anyone who walks or bikes or jogs or gets around actively, that would be really good for them to fill that out. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Tyler Hanson Memorial Hockey Tournament is coming up this weekend, and I've been asked to field the team, and I'm attempting to coordinate that with Uxbridge right now. So thank you.
That's great. You can answer the challenge on Twitter that Mayor Barton issued to us. You could announce that if you would, or do that on Twitter. And apparently there's going to be a dropping of the puck at 12 o'clock by Mayor Barton and myself. So, anything else? Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to mention that the Scugog Council of the Arts have requested permission to occupy Perry Street from Queen to North this Saturday from 7 to 7 for their 2019 Culture Days event. It celebrates music, art, and culture, as you all know, and it's been many years that they've had success at it. Sidewalk chalk artists are invited. There is a contest, $100 is up for grabs. Again, that's Saturday from 7 till 7.
Sounds great. Anything else? On Saturday, there was the free dentistry at Dental Associates up at the Medical Associates building. And I went there not to get some free dental work, but went there to congratulate them and thank them for their contribution to this community for their efforts that day. There were many, many volunteers there that day, so that was exciting. Any announcements from staff? Chief? Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Drew. I'd just like to advise you that through the hard work of the men and women of Scugog Fire, that we were very successful in achieving our tanker shuttle accreditation to the commercial level.
Congratulations.
So, not only did we achieve it, but we stepped it up a bit, and I'm very proud of the work that went into it. And I hope you are as well.
We
sure
certainly
the residents
are.
will be thankful in the
Yeah.
Port Perry area. Also, I'd like to remind you that Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. We are going to be in the community doing lots of things that I wouldn't suggest that we don't do on a regular basis, but we will be more obvious this time around. The Alarm for Life program, recognizing our firefighters and our community partners at the schools. Please, I encourage the public to, if they see a firefighter out doing their thing through Fire Prevention Week, to ask us about fire safety,
Okay,
and let us help you be fire safe. So, thank you very much.
thank you. Director Valentin?
Thank you, Mayor Drew. Just a reminder that the budget survey is online until the end of the month, and end of September, and I'm happy to report we have surpassed our 134 respondents from 2 years ago. So
Wonderful.
we're at 137 respondents right now, so
Well, we're getting the word out there, so
Yes, thank
that's
you.
great. Thank you, that's good news. Anybody else from staff have an announcement? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to, we have no delegations or presentations tonight. We'll move on to the consent agenda, and I have 9.1.1, 9.1.2, 9.1.3, 0.6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 9. Oh, no, that's a report, so, okay. Oh, that still is under, sorry, that is still under the consent agenda. I have 9.2.2 and 9.4.3. Are there any others I would like pulled? Councilor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Did you say 9.2.1, the Canada Day?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay,
got
thank
that.
you.
Yep. And Councilor Ross? That was it? Okay. Thank you. Are there any others? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the remaining items. Councilor Kiesebrink? Councilor Ross? Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 9.1.1, Councilor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can direct my first set of questions to page 9 of this report. I do apologize that that meeting, I was not in attendance at this portion of the discussion, and perhaps it was discussed, but the $9,000 for the weekend staff, are we involved in the work plan that is going to be provided to this weekend staffer? Meaning, is it going to be focused on Scugog tourism? And do we have a say in what tasks is completed on the weekends?
It's my understanding that the BIA and the Chamber have been working on a plan, the responsibilities of that person, and they're going to be looking for input from council, and I would ask, who would I direct this to for input? Okay, Mr. CAO?
For any input?
Yeah,
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, the resolution, of course, is in front of you, and the arrangement and resolution that was passed was that they would report back to council with a summary of what had been achieved through the hiring of this person so that it could be considered for next year's budget. So that still remains to happen. But I will, through the tourism committee, I will speak to our staff representative to see, and of course we have our council representative here. That's Councillor Watton, to ensure that we do get an opportunity to provide some feedback.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. My question wasn't necessarily to be involved in the after, it was to be involved in the prior, to ensure that the $9,000 from taxpayers' money is being used for Scugog tourism purposes and not BIA-centric or chamber-centric, that it is used for our tourism plan for the greater Scugog.
Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my understanding of, that we, some of council or maybe staff will be asked to help develop the terms of reference. So that certainly can be taken into consideration as they move forward.
Thank you. So then a job description, would that,
That's part of that.
so that will be coming to us prior, though, to hiring an employee? Or it's coming after?
No, it would come before, I would think.
Through you, Your Worship, my understanding that there won't be anything coming to council directly, that it will be dealt with through liaison between the tourism committee, chamber, and the BIA. So there wasn't any direction or for this to come back to council. It's $9,000 for a purpose, and I believe that terms of reference are being developed as mentioned.
And the job description.
And the job description, and then there's input being sought from staff and through the committee.
Okay, thank you. I would just feel comfortable that we are funding a portion of that, that we are a part of that discussion and that we're aware of what they're working on. Not to say that the Chamber and BIA don't do great work for tourism, they absolutely do, but that $9,000 shouldn't fund the operation of either business. It should fund tourism for Scugog. And I guess my next question is on the third part of the motion, was that the second request for additional funding, once received in writing from the Port Perry BIA and Chamber of Commerce, be referred to the 2020 budget process. Have we received that?
Director Valentin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, I have not received anything.
Okay, so then does that mean it's too late for the budget consideration?
It would be an operational matter. When is the deadline for that?
End of October.
End of October. And may I just ask what that funding was for?
We don't know yet.
Oh, you don't
I
know?
don't-
They
I
just
don't know.
asked for funding without, or, okay. All right. I'll move on to my next set of questions then. On page 19 of the report is a motion that both Councillor Watton and I supported regarding the gifting program for parks and trees, Gift That Grows program. I was just wondering if we made any progress on looking into this and seeing if this could be something that we would be able to incorporate in the Township of Scugog.
Director Coleman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. It is on our work plan to do this, but no, we haven't gotten to it yet.
Do we have a rough idea as to when?
I hope we can do it by the end of the year. We have very full work plans at the moment, so we will try to do it.
Okay, it is on a work plan, so it won't be lost then, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions on 9.1.1? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh, motion to approve those minutes. Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor Watton, all those in favor? And that's carried. 9.1.2, the GP&A Administration Committee meeting, page 21 of the agenda. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that the preamble for the motion was included in the minutes. So that item 9.2.2, the always stop warrant analysis results be amended to include the following preamble, and then that the minutes of the General Purpose and Administration Committee meeting of September 9th be adopted.
Okay, have you got those comments? I see they're written down here, right? Yeah. From the last meeting, okay. Normally our minutes are taken with just the actions that are taken, but I do recall you coming out with quite a preamble that could be considered part of the motion. So if everybody is in agreement with that, are there any other questions on those minutes? We have a mover. Councillor Kiesebrink has moved the minutes. I have a seconder, please. Councillor Ross. No questions or comments. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. 9.1.3, Planning and Community Affairs Committee on page 31. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, now that we've had an extra week just to let the State of the Infrastructure plan go through it and sink in, just a question to Director Valentin in regards to point 11.1, which speaks directly to it, just speaks to the 3% roads levy. Regarding the 3% increase over the 10 years, in a couple months we'll have the budget. We'll be going through the budget, and if my math is about right, we're looking at a 3% roads levy, 1% to vehicles and buildings, and then cost of living about 2%. I think it's 6% total. So this is a stark contrast in the amount, the week that we've had, just to look through it. And so 6% versus 3.8 that was staff's recommendation last year. It's clear that the roads deficit can't be fixed overnight, but I also believe that we can't continue to increase our taxes 60% year after year continually. Having looked at it, it appears that a fundamental shift is needed as far as how we spend money and how we go about business in the township. So I understand the tax increase is necessary, but to what end. I think it's important that the administration do its part. As long as the taxpayers are doing their part, we need to do our part. So what is the township going to do differently? What can we expect to see in the budget that shows that changes are being made and how the township is run and how the township thinks about the way it spends the money, given that we have a 6% increase possibly coming up?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Well, what I can say is that the management will be looking at the budget line by line, which is what we've been doing the last couple of years. There's been a big shift. We've been looking to find efficiencies. We will continue to do that. We continue to do that annually. We'll look to that. We'll continue to apply for qualifying grants. Our roads depend on a lot of grants that we already have, federal gas tax being one of them. So we will continue to advocate to government to change the funding formula. I don't feel that we get our adequate share. It's done by census population. Our actual share went down for 2019 because we didn't grow proportionately to the other municipalities. So I was just recently at a conference where I did advocate again to staff for AMO that this change needs to happen. And I know that council, when they went to AMO, they also had a delegation and advocated for this. Unfortunately, I did also hear that one of our other grants that we use for roads is under review by the provincial government, the OSIP. So this has been in place since 2014, and we've been putting all of that funding towards roads as well. Unfortunately, that's under review for 2020 and going forward, so we don't know if we'll even get any of that. Basically, we will be looking at everything, and, if we do not continue to add funding to our roads and we do not get grants, the roads will continue to deteriorate. And then I guess it would be up to council to decide if they want to change the level of service that the township provides to its residents, if taxes aren't going to be raised, then. But we will continue to look for efficiencies throughout our budget and look for better ways to do things.
Mr. CEO?
Madam Mayor, if I could add just to the Treasurer's comments. So there are some other things that are done also to ensure we get best value in our road projects. So, of course, one is re-tendering road projects that come in significantly over budget. You've seen that of late. I mean, we've had tenders come in quite high. It's not good value, so we want to get good value out of the funds that are directed towards road work. You've also looked at consolidating smaller projects together in a tender so that it's a bigger tender, therefore more attractive and more competitive in its bid than a series of smaller tenders. Get better value through doing that. Also, what this administration has done is brought the capital budget forward in November. That wasn't done in the past. And the capital budget is scheduled to be approved in November, near the end of November of this year for 2020. Early approval of the capital budget allows for tenders to go out at the time when it's the most optimum time to obtain the best bids. So it's picking those larger projects, getting them out the door early in the new year so we can get better bids. So I just wanted to assure council that we have for the last few years. I know that this administration's been here looking at every opportunity to spend the town's monies wisely and direct as much funds as possible to roads while balancing the needs of the community as a whole.
Thank you. Anything further?
Thank you, CEO and Director. Just to further on the Director's comments, if the provincial federal funding continues to go down, which it's obviously you've given some examples, is there a plan in process that's a considerable amount of money of where that money will be allocated from in order to, as we've seen the roads being a priority, is there a direction that you're foreseeing, kind of a sneak peek at what's coming in November?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
If our funding continues to go down, which
Right.
we've seen it has, where will we see the majority of the money coming from in order to you're saying the $300-some thousand that we're not going to get for roads. Is there a plan where that money will be found in the budget, or will that just simply disappear and the roads won't receive that funding?
Well, I don't really want to make any decisions until I hear concretely from the government on what's happening there. We will have to look with senior management on a plan going forward, whether that means we have to take debentures. I mean, this is something that I have to investigate, which then adds to the cost because you have carrying costs with those as well. But we would have to look at other avenues, obviously. It wouldn't just be something that the taxpayers would have to continue. We'd have to look at other avenues for sure.
Just to follow up, is it likely that the provincial government will give us an answer on these before our budget is due?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not confident in that. The communication that I was getting that nothing is going to happen before the results of the federal election, and I don't know if they already have their answers to be able to release that to us before the beginning of beginning of November when the draft will come forward. So doubtful.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to reiterate that as a result of that meeting where we talked about the 3%, that is not a done deal. That is going as a recommendation to the budget process. So I know that there are a lot of people that saw 3% and kind of didn't look any further and kind of panicked. But it is not a done deal. Just the same as any other recommendation that we put through the budget process. It has to be talked about at that time. So, okay. Any other questions on that, Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just so that I understand, the 3% that we're talking about is roughly equivalent, Director Valentin, to about $40 per household. Is that right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Okay, and the OSIF funding, how much is that we'd be missing out on if the province takes it away?
About 3%. $384,000, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have well, I get the motion on the floor, Councillor Ross, Councillor Kiesebrink. Okay, Councillor McDougall, you had a question?
I did, thank you, Madam Mayor. To Director Valentin, just having a look at the Zukasa survey from 2015 on taxes in the GTA, Scugog, we desperately need the money to put towards our roads. There's no questions about that. Scugog's already 28 out of 33 on that survey in terms of our costing for taxes. But one of the things that they mention in here is they talk about our average house value being at $660,000, and in our budget survey we talk about our average assessment being at, and don't quote me, it's 400 and something. So if I assume that the average household that's at $660,000 won't be seeing a $40 increase, it will be more likely seeing a $60 increase. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, it is dependent upon your assessed value of your home.
Okay. And then the other thing important I think to remember is the 3% that we put on this year and the 3% we put on next year just for the roads is compounding over time, which is what gives us our nest egg to spend on roads over time, but it does compound.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Any other further questions on that? All those in favor of the minutes? That's carried, thank you. 9.1.7, Fort Perry BIA, page 49 in your agenda, their minutes.
I think we also pulled 9.1.6, but my question was actually addressed when I asked my questions from the 9.1.1, so I can move those minutes.
9.1.6.
I can move 9.1.6, but I still have questions on point 7.
Okay, go ahead.
So do you want a motion to move?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll move 9.1.6.
Yeah, it was not pulled here.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Oh.
And so it's already been
Okay,
approved.
perfect. I'm sorry. I thought I had it circled that anyways. Okay. My question is in regards to a few of the financial questions. In our agenda on page 50, there was an email correspondence between Councillor Brown and Director Valentin regarding the difference in the budgeted rental amount. My question is, and perhaps Councillor Brown or Director Valentin could answer it, is there enough money or funding in their overall budget to cover the increase in rent that they hadn't expected to pay? And if not, what will be suffering or what will not be occurring? I don't know. Councillor Brown, if you know if they have to pull from a different line item in order to meet up.
Yeah.
Councillor Brown, you got an answer?
Well, I think I do. Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I believe that the BIA has, they're going to have to move money around in order to be able to make that work. The impression I get, and I don't want to say it's written in stone, is that they will be able to do that. That's certainly the impression that I was given, is that they will be able to work things out a different way. So they're looking at that, but nothing's been done yet.
Okay, and do you know if they'll be sending an updated budget to their membership to advise as to if some program isn't to occur?
I do not know,
Okay.
but I can find out.
Maybe that might be a good suggestion, just because of the past tensions around this area. It might be a good idea to over-communicate rather than under-communicate with the membership. And then when we go into the MOU, and I apologize, Councillor Brown, if you're not able to answer this question, it's again budgeting, and when we're talking about utilities or any other fees, sorry, JP, it's on page 56, but when we're speaking to any type of expense that's going to be split 3 ways, how is the BIA to budget if they are not in control necessarily of the spending amounts? So if it's being split 3 ways, which is lovely, and they'll be provided with a copy of the invoice before they pay their portion, if they've only budgeted $200 for internet and the package that the person negotiating is $500 a month, is there going to be pre-dialogue to understand all the costs so that when they build their budget for 2020, everyone's aware of what the costs are, so they're not having to take from one line item for the future?
Well, what I think you're getting at is, and through you, Madam Mayor, what I think you're getting at is whether or not people are going to be informed, the BIA members, are going to be informed of the changes that are being considered at this point?
No, it's more, so let's say the BIA has done their budget for internet and phone services, and they budgeted for the year $200 a month. Now, from reading this, the chamber is the one that's setting up all of these accounts, so they are going to choose whatever package they choose, and what if that amount comes to $500 that the portion is that the BI has to pay, and they've only budgeted for $200? Are they taking into account when they're building their budget that they're going to have some kind of dialogue with the other parties involved to make sure that we're not having to go throughout the year and move money line item from one place to the other, like they're doing with the rent?
Councillor Brown, would it be fair to say that although the Chamber of Commerce is setting up the account, would it be fair to say that it will be in full consultation with the other 2 renters?
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that there will be dialogue between all 3 parties, and if there are any overages that if you haven't budgeted for them, then you handle them as they come by and go to your membership and ask that changes be made. And I'm with you, I don't think they need to move line items, but they need to make sure that whatever they're paying for, whether it's internet or something else, that they do it properly.
Right, so yes, Madam Mayor, my question is that all 3 parties are going to be having the same conversations as to what they can afford and what they budgeted.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
So that's 9.1.7. Do we have a mover on that? Yes.
Just a further question on the memorandum of understanding. So does that extend to advertising that's purchased as well?
Councillor Brown, are you?
I don't know. I'd have to find out.
I would think that their advertising would be separate.
Yeah, no, I asked because I just have heard some advertising where I hear BIA members and chamber members advertised in the same advertisement. So I was just curious as to how you would do the accounting on that.
My understanding is our control over the BIA budget is very, very limited. All we do is collect the taxes. Their budget is their budget. And as long as they don't, they've got their their limit of revenue, and they have to control it. We don't, really not of our business, I would say. Is that fair to say, Director Valentin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah. What council does here is approves the budget annually. So the BIA brings forward their budget for approval, which then allows the township to get the tax levy from the BIA members and distribute it back to the BIA.
Further, so it's not council's responsibility to oversee whether the BIA's dues are spent on BIA advertising or chamber advertising.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say no. I think you've got a board, a BIA board, that would speak to that. Council's responsibility is to ensure that the budget does come forward to council, and as long as the membership approves it, then you can approve it as well.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Did we have a mover on that? No, okay. Councilor Guido, did you want to make that motion? Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councilor Kiesebrink. No further questions or comments. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. 9.1.8, and Councilor Guido again. Scugog Heritage Advisory Committee, page 49.
It's fantastic. I apologize. I feel like this is the Jana show.
59, sorry, page 59.
Hang on 1 second. Councillor Brown, I'm sorry, this may be a question for you as well. It's on page 62, under public and education and public awareness. It says, Mr. Van Bielsen spoke to various local businesses in regards to Heritage Grant opportunities and noted there was limited interest at this time. I would hope he wouldn't just speak to the local businesses, but that he would speak to the building owners. Not all businesses own their buildings, and if building owners want to make improvements, I would hope that they're involved in his surveys as to whether or not there's an interest.
You bring that forward?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Angus Ross, Councillor Ross was at that meeting, actually, so I don't know that it's fair to put you in the position of answering that, but what I can do is make note of it and go back to Mr. Van Bielsen and ask him to be a little bit more transparent in how he talks to businesses.
Well, it's more
Whoever
just
is
to
a-
bring the building owners into the conversation.
Yeah.
That's all. They may want to make improvements where the tenants can't necessarily make the decision to make an improvement on a building they don't own.
So Councillor Brown, you're the representative and you're the alternate, is that
That's right.
correct? Well, either one or the other, could just clarify that?
Yeah, through you,
Do you have
Madam
a
Mayor. I think although that's the way it was recorded in the minutes, the general idea was that he did speak to it. I can't guarantee that he did speak to the owners themselves. It wasn't brought up at the meeting, nor was it thought of at that time, but perhaps in the next meeting it could be clarified if either one of us is sitting on that committee at the time. We had just spoken with one of the building owners just before this had come up, and there was conversation at the time with that building owner in regards to this education and awareness. So it needs to be clarified.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Guido, for bringing that forward. Motion to approve those minutes. Councillor Guido, seconded by Councillor Watton. Any more questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. 9.1.9, Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee, Councillor Watton. That's on page 63.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm just searching for the actual page, but I'll just direct my question, if I might, to you. In these minutes, it refers to a new committee being formed. And I just wondered, is that a committee of council, or is that just a working group committee, or what type of committee is it?
I think,
I'm trying to find it here to give you an
I
exact
think it's a
date.
different set of minutes, and I'm
Is
glad
it?
you brought that up because it's in
Oh, I
the
think it's,
the BIA, I think.
No,
Yes,
it's not.
BIA. And it says, on page 51, it says,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Healthy Lake Scugog Steering
oh,
Committee
I'm sorry, yes.
has launched a new
Sorry.
committee.
Yes.
And I should have brought that forward. I did have a tab there, but it's the Waterfront Action Plan Committee, what's that the correct name? It's not the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee that has a committee. It's for the waterfront and it's for input on the design of the waterfront from Voss to Bird's Eye Park and the parking lot. Okay? Was there any other questions? Can you move the minutes then, please?
No, I'll move the minutes then, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you. Moved by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Ross. Further questions or, excuse me, further questions or comments on the Healthy Lake Scugog Steering Committee meeting minutes? All those in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. 9.1.10, Councillor Guido, the Tourism Advisory Committee, page 70.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me just find my question. On page 71, 5 bullets down, committee suggested that slides be permitted on gateway signs. Is this slides to advertise events or things happening in the town? And if so, is there going to be a policy developed as to who gets to put a slide up on a sign?
Councillor Watton, you were there at that meeting. Do you have a comment?
It is kind of to promote the events of within the community. It is also something that is just being looked at and discussed through the Central Counties Partnership for funding. And so at this point, there is no policy or even a full recommendation for that. It was just, to me, my understanding at the time was that it was a conversation that it should be considered.
Looks like there's a conversation that there's no recommendation. Perfect. So
Just if it ever does come, if there can be a policy, because then it will be a fight
For
to
sure.
who gets what on there.
yes,
Perfect, thank
got
you.
that right. Is there any other questions or comments?
Sorry, quick
Councillor
question.
Dougal?
Thank you very much. Would that be on the new gateway sign as well on 7A?
I guess that's up to the tourism committee and their conversations and their
Okay.
dialogue. I don't know how that would happen, actually.
Yeah, because it's kind of got a nice look to it, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you'd put slides on that.
And the MTO may have some comments about that as well,
That's
if we start decorating the signs on along their highway.
Very well.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Can I have a mover for those minutes? Councillor Guido, Councillor Brown? Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Now we're moving on to departmental reports, 9.2.1, the Canada Day celebrations, page 80. And I have Councillor Ross and Councillor Guido both hold this. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I guess it's going to be to Director Coleman. My understanding is that the summer student did this report, is that right? Oh, great. Just on page 88 at the recommendations for the 2020 Canada Day celebrations, it was good to see the reflection that he had on how to have a better event next time. The second last point there is just have concerns with the wording of it. Consider letting MP Aaron O'Toole help with getting young veterans to participate.
How about encouraging?
Yeah, asking, encouraging, and also perhaps since we have a federal election coming up, we may not have Mr. O'Toole as an MP. Maybe we could just change to an MP or the Legion itself. I know the Legion, my understanding was a bit of a last minute thing to get some of the young veterans involved on this one, on the last Canada celebration, so maybe ahead of time with the Legion and perhaps an MP coming in. Just a suggestion with the minutes themselves, the way they're worded.
Yeah, that could be worded a little better. And also, the Ontario Regiment would be another, because I think it was the Ontario Regiment that actually got a couple of younger veterans, or actually those that are in the service currently. They got them, and I think our MP, Aaron O'Toole, got some too. He's always been very, very helpful for this event. So, anything else on Canada Day? Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On to Councillor Ross's point about for future, I was happy to see that the consideration for refillable water bottles or water station was in there for next year. That would be a great addition. I would just like to point out or ask that we acknowledge on page 91 of the budget, we acknowledge that Cedar Creek Contracting donated the fencing, but on page 83 of the sponsors, it is not mentioned that he's the sponsor. So I think if we're sending thanks or anything out, that Cedar Creek Contracting should be acknowledged as well.
You're correct, absolutely correct, yeah. Are there any other questions on this? Because I have a couple. Councillor McDougall?
First one is a comment. I'm always so happy with our Canada Day celebrations as a father of 4 young children. It's always a great family event. I was very pleased to see in this report something I didn't consider, but page 89, it says try to introduce more agriculture into the parade and then the event in general, and that made me very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of things that there was a name left off, it's either left off of the committee or it's left off of the volunteers, and that's Paul Robinson. I'm not sure if he was actually a member of the committee or whether he assisted with the parade. And also Carol Salamoni was a volunteer. And on page 85, the Vets for Vets, I think we need to name the club because that was a few phone calls, but it was one organizer of the club, and I can't tell you the proper name of the club right now, but I can certainly get it for you, or Megan can get it for you. Okay, and pleased to see that we made $3 and change. With that, we could get a couple of small coffees, but at least it didn't cost us anything more than what we granted in the first place, and that's great news. It was a really great event, and thank you to all of the staff and the volunteers and the volunteer committee that put this event forward. It's a great job, great day. Very affordable for families. You would be able to tell us that, Councillor McDougall, with 4 children. There was a lot of free events for kids. Okay, so can I have a mover for this report to Councillor Keysbrink, Councillor Watton? Any further questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we move now to 9.2.2, page 94, the council list of items, and I have Councillor Brown and Councillor Guido. Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Director Valentin, I've got a bunch of questions here, and I hope I can be as brief as possible. On page 96, I think there's a mention of some sidewalks there. We're going to invest in sidewalks. I just want, if we can explain to people where they go to find out if their sidewalk is being looked after, because as I've mentioned once before or twice, some people want sidewalks, some people don't want sidewalks, but those people who do want sidewalks are vehement about it. So is there a place where they can go to get that information?
To you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. We have a list. It's not publicized at the moment, but what we're coming up with through the active transportation plan and the transportation master plan, that will include the list of connections that the staff has already identified and the list that is identified through the study, and we'll make the results of that report public, and it'll be on our website and everyone can see it. And there'll also be a public consultation as part of that. Right now there's a survey, but when we have a draft plan, we'll have a public meeting and people can see where we're proposing connections.
Okay, and just subsequent, if I can, then, and through you, Madam Mayor, there's a mention of water refill stations, part of the new washroom for Palmer Park. We're waiting for the region to improve the taste of the water. How long do we wait for that to happen? Do we have any idea?
You can answer that.
Through you, Your Worship. I know that right now the region is looking at new wells in the general proximity of the existing wells on Simcoe. They are in the design stage now, and the new wells will include not just wells like the current water comes out of the ground, It will include a treatment system. So it'll go through a filtration system as well as, being good groundwater. But I think that should eliminate, we do have a smell in some areas of Fort Perry, and in some areas I've heard a taste problem, so that should eliminate that. As these projects go, I'm not sure the exact time, but it's in the 2 to 3 year timeline. I would speculate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO, and subsequent, if I may, again, through you, Madam Mayor. New signage for ball diamonds, soccer fields, and dog parks. One of the things I would just ask, and I don't know if I can do any more than ask about it, is that we consider those signs all being something similar, and maybe we can have a heritage, some sort of heritage effect to those signs as well, given that we make such a big deal about the heritage of this township, and it'd be nice to see it represented. And I do want to ask Director Coleman, again, when the dog park is going to be ready to go.
To you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I had a request for quotation out for the fencing for the dog park, and unfortunately, it came back higher than I have budgeted for that, so I am negotiating with suppliers right now and trying to get it to be within our budget. So I was hoping that the fence would be built this fall. I'm still hopeful that will happen. That's still my intention to get it done this fall.
So again, through you, Madam Mayor, so that's late this fall, sometime
Yes.
later this fall, so end of October, November type of thing,
November.
before Christmas. And the other thing, the one more thing, if I may, Madam
Yes.
Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
the repairs to Bayview, that's, I don't have a page number on it, but it's part of this as well, maybe a little bit further down, JP. It's vitally important that we do something. It's been 9 years that these people have, there it is, number 18. 9 years that these people have had to try to deal with the water issue, the grates, the fact that they've got a retaining wall that people drilled holes through, which wasn't proper engineering, and a sidewalk that's leads to basically nowhere. So I understand that that's an enormous amount of money, but it's also enormously important that we don't leave people on the hook for 9 years wondering why they haven't had repairs done. So it's just a statement at this point. I don't think it's a question as such, but it's vital that we get this looked after for these people.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Nothing further? All finished? Okay. Councilor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 97, item number 13, the solar lighting on paths at baseball diamonds and soccer fields. I really hope that in this would be encompassing the path along the waterfront that starts at the baseball diamonds and leads you through a whole lot of trees to Kurt Street. Would need to meet lighting safety standards. I would hazard to guess that right now the safety standard of not having it lit is probably something that we should look at. It is rather overgrown, and I'm not sure if that goes into the lakes enhancement plan as far as needing to have that shrubbery there, but it's something that perhaps we can really look at addressing the safety of that pathway.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I printed the council request list off and made lots of notes on each individual one. And it's probably better time to go through it at budget time, but one particular one, and then I just have a general comment that I think it's not going to make me very popular amongst my peers here, but 29 in regards to talking to the Heritage Committee and the BIA regarding accessible ramps for businesses. Just that's kind of being on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and just that might be worthwhile having a chat with, putting it on our agenda there. This is that's one of our, has come up in recent meetings. And then overall, just to my comments earlier in the night, and that there's a couple needs in here that has been spoken to tonight, and then there's a lot of wants, and just council going forward, like I said, it probably won't make me very popular, but I think based on the presentation that we had the last time we sat at this table with how much our roads hurt, and I'm the one who's constantly harping on roads, but when we're asking our taxpayers to hike over an extra 3%, and
No,
then
we're not yet, we're not.
when we're asking to be considered,
Right.
to consider it, and that our budget's being being formulated around that 3% for us to look at and approve at that point. I think we need to just keep in the back of our minds that some of these wants are going to have to go by the wayside in order that we're not looking at we're not considering a higher tax rate to people. So although it's a wish list, I think we need to be prepared to make some hard decisions in November. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. CAO?
Madam Mayor, if I could, just to clarify, the budget is not yet being developed around a 3% increase. Staff will be bringing forward at the first GPNA in October the budget target report for council. That is council's opportunity to give staff direction. Yes, staff will be recommending the 3% because we feel that's what's needed to address our road needs. But you'll see the total picture in that report in terms of cost of living requirement and what the road needs are. And then we'll take direction from council. And from there, we will craft the budget.
If I may,
Ross?
thank you, CAO. It's my understanding that we've said to go that we will consider the 3% going ahead, and then in October at the PCA meeting, it'll be come up. Unless all of our minds change, at that point, we will again say we were considering the 3% amongst other targets for tax increase, and that the budget will be based around those numbers. But unless anything changes, then the 3% will be going ahead. Is that correct?
Your worships. Yeah, I'm just, strongly suggesting to council that that's the opportunity to give us direction if you don't agree with the target recommendation that comes forward from staff. Because yes, we will craft the budget around that and spend a considerable amount of time doing that. Council always has the opportunity to change the budget, revise the budget, adjust that rate when the budget comes forward. But we would prefer that you give consideration at the tax target time and send us off to do to bring back a budget that meets the target that council is asking be provided in the budget.
Councilor Ross, further?
Thank you. Just to clarify, my comments are not that I'm against a 3% increase or 6% increase at the end of the day when it shows up, but that if that is the way council decides to go, which from last meeting it was directed towards that, it's more that we have to make some decisions and that we're not going to have the same amount of money, the same amount of grants coming forward, the same amount of handouts from other governments, and if we're asking our taxpayers to come halfway, that we also need to come halfway. And so the list that we've all provided, and my items are on here as well, so it's not I'm singling anybody out, just that the decisions will have to be made.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given Dave Anderson's presentation at our last council meeting, two things that are not on this list but pertain specifically to roads, but I believe he had recommended a geotechnical review for our gravel roads specifically, and the other thing he recommended was a road safety study, I believe, which could lead to possible liabilities. But that might be, given that we're giving a specific increase towards roads, that might be a consideration for our 2020 year budgets.
Director Coleman, you had a comment on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. With respect to geotechnical, I would do that on a road-specific basis. I wouldn't go and do all the roads at once. I would do, okay, we're working on this road A, we'll do a geotechnical to see what it needs and make sure we do it right when we do it. That's the approach we take for hard surface roads right now. Well, the other one was, the safety review. We're doing that so far internally with our own resources as we have the time. So we'll be looking at different roads and curve sections and improving them as we go. So at this point, there's no budget item for that. We could hire outside consultants to do it quicker, or we could continue to work at it internally at a slower pace.
Okay, further?
Just back to the geotechnical, I can understand exactly what you're saying. So you get a snapshot now of all your roads and they're moving over time. My concern is just with the number of roads that had SA failure being structural adequacy. We really don't know what the state of those roads are we have a lot of complaints with the material. He mentioned it's possible punching through of the sub-base. He also mentioned that was possible, how did he want to call it, operate or something, so basically greater operation, I believe. But somehow I believe that material might be contaminated, and that's what our residents are complaining about.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillors. So new material is we're putting down. We are doing a high level of quality control for that now through a geotechnical as part of our operating budget. So we know that the quality that went down this year was good for sure.
And further, and we know that the base below the material that we put down is good, so there was geotechnical done on those roads prior to putting that filled material down?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, not this year. We have not been doing that practice for putting it down. The roads also need a lot of ditching work as well, so we're playing catch up at the moment, but we will be starting to do geotechnical in the future on gravel roads.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I've got a couple there, I see. And to your point, Councillor Ross, I know that there are probably some that people would consider as wants rather than needs. Some of them will keep us out of the court as well. You know, lighting and things like that will keep us out of the courtroom. And there are also some ideas here that should there be grants come available, or should there be extra money from somewhere become available, then the staff knows where we would like that directed. So, but I want to pay particular attention to, there was about 3 or 4 roads, specific roads, and I'm wondering, Director Coleman, if these on the wish list are going to be, if you're going to go to the roads needs study and see where they are on the priority, because I personally am not in favor of jumping the gun on road number 10 on the priority list and putting it at number 1. I don't think that's fair to the residents. So are you just taking these roads and just having another look to see if perhaps they need to be jumping the priority list, or how are you going to deal with that?
In reality, we look at all roads throughout the township each year when we do the budget. The roads needs study just gave us a great update on the condition of all the roads and recommendations of how to do it. So we will continue to be basing our program on the roads needs study and on the other criteria that we've come up with in the past, like the volumes of roads, how much maintenance is involved. So we'll still be doing that. The fact that a road is on this list doesn't really influence how we're choosing roads for the capital budget and forecast going forward.
That's good, and I hope that council's all on board for that we go through the criteria, as we've spent some money on experts to look at these, at our roads and at our bridges, and I think that we need to pay attention to what they say, and also the extra criteria of volume and so on and so forth. So I hope that council is all on board with that we go with the priorities. Okay, and I think that's all that I had. Some of these things, repairs to the tennis courts downtown, I'm wondering if we will take a look at the design of the waterfront before we move on any issues that have come forward on the waterfront. That's just my 2 cents worth. Okay, may I have a mover, please? Oh, Councillor Keesby, got a question?
Just a comment, Madam Mayor, further to your point with respect to roads. In Ward 4, there's some really grave road concerns. Devitts Road, Byers Road, Cedar Grove, and Caesarea, finishing Williams Point. And I know that our Public Works Director is very familiar, and we've all been much more informed given the report that was brought forward. I just wanted to make a point that this list is not meant to be exhaustive in its reflection of the attention of the roads. I don't want the public to see some roads named in here and assume that other roads are not important and not on our radar. So I wasn't aware that roads could be something that could be included in this wish list, but I just did want to state publicly that I've been advocating with with whatever means possible for these critical roads in Ward 4. And I'm glad that your comments, Madam Mayor, just now brought a little clarification about the roads and your comments, Director Coleman, as to how the process will be moving forward, because these roads are so important for so many people. Thank you.
Every ward has roads that, and we have to be fair to everybody. Okay, do I have a mover, please, for this? Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor McDougall? All those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. The next item is 9.3.1, and we need to receive the Trent Conservation Coalition regarding municipal representation of the Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection Committee. Page 102. Did you want to say anything, JP, on this? Or just we have a formal motion? So that the Township of Scugog endorse Township of Minden Hills Mayor Brent Devlin and City of Kawartha Lakes Deputy Mayor Doug Elmsley as municipal representatives on the Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection Committee. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Watton, Councillor Ross. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carries. With respect to the Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection Committee, I'm on that committee right now, have been for 13 years of a 5-year term. And I'm not going to renew my term on that, which means that there will not be, my position on the committee is as not political. It is rural, a rural representative. And I would ask that my term is up in December, and so they will be advertising for that. It's not a huge time commitment as far as number of meetings, but when they do have a meeting, it is all day, plus the studying before and the travel. So you can say that you're going to take away the whole day. So just want you to think about that, and we will certainly be putting it out to members of the public as well. Because when I leave, it's my understanding right now anyway, that there will be no representative from Durham on there. And the Trent Coalition goes from Scugog to Trenton, up to Algonquin Park, and down to Bay of Quinte. And there is nobody from Durham on that, or may not be anybody from Durham on that. So we will be sure to get that advertised when we hear that they're going to be doing some interviewing. Okay? And I'd be glad to help out anybody that wants to apply for that. Bylaws. 9.3.4, and I have pulled that because we got a petition today. And this is on it says Bay Street, but it's actually Balsam, that where the houses are anticipated to be going. And I think there's maybe not a clear understanding with this petition that came in today. This is the Oxnard development where right now it's zoned for, and I'll get Director Heritage to explain it. And we are looking in this bylaw to rezone it for 16 linked but detached, so to speak, houses, plus one fully detached house. Director Heritage, would you kindly just reiterate what it is that this bylaw is all about and what it means to Balsam Street and Bay Street?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the zoning bylaw amendment application, the application has gone through an extensive public consultation process. There was a statutory public meeting held back in September of 2018, and based on the issues that were raised at that statutory public meeting, a public open house was held in April of 2019, and as a result of those comments, the applicant revised their application from the original application of 18 semi-detached houses to 16 linked dwellings underground, detached above ground, plus one single detached dwelling. So they reduced the number of dwellings by 1 from 18 down to 17. And then the recommendation report came forward to council or to Planning and Community Affairs last Monday. And there were a number of delegations that appeared, several delegations that appeared from Balsam Street and addressed the committee at that point in time. Now, as you recall, the staff report outlined a substantial amount of background on the application, as well as identified a number of the issues that were raised by the residents and how those issues would be resolved. The staff dealt with lot sizes, sump pump systems, stormwater management, parking, and sidewalks. So we're at the stage now where staff has prepared the zoning amendment. It's before council tonight. And once council approves the zoning amendment, a notice of the approval of that application will be circulated to anybody that is requested to be circulated. And there's a 20-day appeal period. Anyone can appeal that to LPAT, which is the former Ontario Municipal Board, and a hearing will be held. Now, if council decides to not pass the bylaw tonight, on the other hand, the applicant, due to the timelines that are in place, the applicant has the ability to appeal a non-decision of council on the zoning amendment to LPAT as well. So that's where we're at tonight. It's in front of council and it's for council's consideration.
Director
The
Heritage,
existing-
oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. The existing zoning on the property is RM4, which permits 40 nonprofit housing units in could be developed within an apartment building of 3 stories in height. So the proposal is a substantial decrease in the number of units from 40 down to 17, which is in conformity with the Scugog official plan. Now, in addition to the zoning amendment that's before council tonight, as you know, the applicant has applied for a draft plan of subdivision to subdivide that land into 17 parcels. The region of Durham is the approval authority for draft plans of subdivision, and they will be in time issuing a notice of decision. Now, that notice of decision also proceeds through a 20-day appeal period. So anyone has the ability to appeal that notice of decision to approve that draft plan of subdivision. So there are 2 elements working in tandem here. It's the draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So if it is challenged to LPAT and the challenge is successful, it reverts back to the zoning that's in place right now, which is 40 units in an apartment building, possibly 3 stories. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, or the zoning could be amended through further discussion, and it would come back to this council as well.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Brown, did you have a question?
Just clarification, actually, thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Director Heritage, I've got a list of people who live across the street from where this is going to be built. That's probably not surprising you. I think I've got something like 13 signatures on a petition. I just want to make sure that they have a complete understanding of what their avenues of appeal are, because they don't want 30-foot lots, 17 plus 1. They want something that's similar to the same size as the lots that they live in across the street. So they'd like to do something about it, I think, and I want to make sure that they understand what their avenues are. I understand 2 avenues of appeal.
That's correct.
And the first one would be available to them after tonight?
Should council approve the zoning amendment or the zoning bylaw, the clerk's department would issue a notice in the next couple of days, and that notice would identify a 20-day appeal period, which anyone would have the opportunity to appeal the zoning amendment to LPAT.
And just subsequent to that, if I can, through you, Madam Mayor, basically what I'm hearing is that this comes down to an apartment building across the street or 17 plus 1 across the street. Is that a fair thing for me to say?
16 plus 1.
16 plus 1, sorry.
That's what the township has in front of it right at this point in time. One other point that I'd like to clarify is that the existing zoning on the south side of Balsam is R2 in zoning bylaw 1414. That zoning permits a minimum lot frontage of 10 meters for single detached dwellings. So in the fullness of time or in the future, the township could be seeing the ultimate redevelopment of some of those lots and being further subdivided in compliance with the existing zoning bylaw, which would permit 10-meter lots.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Brown? Okay, Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just to Councillor Brown, I know we had the delegations the other night and heard a lot of concerns over sidewalks and drainage issues and everything, but you have 13 signatories on the petition. Is there anything else that's come up out of those that is of note, or it just seems to me like it's more of a cohesion with what they have, what people on the south side of Balsam have, and they'd like to see the same on the north? Is there any other specific?
I'll ask Director Heritage to answer that, because he got the petition today.
Okay, sorry, then a previous question to that is, the petition, it was delivered to you, was there any explanation into that, or does the petition actually state what the issues are?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. There was a covering letter to the petition, and the covering letter specifically dealt with the lot sizes and the number of lots that were being proposed on the north side of the street. They understood that some of the issues were resolved to their satisfaction, including parking, where the applicant has now agreed, or has agreed, as indicated last week, that 2 parking spaces would be provided in the driveway, plus 1 additional parking space in the garage. There was also a lot of discussion, as you know, last week about stormwater management and how this development will actually help the existing storm flows that are on the lands from the north traveling to the east. They'll be more directed to the newly urbanized Balsam Street into the storm sewers.
Further?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. So parking issue's been resolved. The drainage has been resolved. What's outstanding that hasn't been resolved that has triggered the petition at this point?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it's the number of units that are being proposed and the frontages.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Okay, Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, you asked anything further, look this way and then that way. A quick question. I'm seeing on the schedule or the map, something that's noted as RE. We keep referring to this as being zoned as RM4. What's RE, and is that part of this project?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, RE stands for recreational, and a portion of the lands that are currently zoned RE recreational will be rezoned to permit the proposed development. That's the portion of the lands that are being sold by the Legion to the proponent.
So currently, not all the land is zoned RM4-1. Through you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the southwestern portion of the subject property is zoned RM4-1. The other portion to the east is zoned RE.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We ready for someone to move bylaw number 6319? Councillor Guido, you're looking puzzled. Oh. Have a mover, please. Councillor Kiesebrink. Seconder. Councillor Watton. All those in favor? Well, I have to have hands higher than that. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. The tie? I'm in favor. That's carried. Thank you, and now we're at 9.4.7. We amend the traffic bylaw with respect to speed limits, Platten Boulevard, Mass Road, and Pine Gate Road. Page 120. I had that pulled by Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Coleman. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what meeting this was spoken to, but the last time we spoke to in regards to this, the recommendation as seen in your report here is the changing the laneway from the roadway to the laneway, changing that to a 40-kilometer-hour zone. Can you just go through what other signage? I know it's not part of this bylaw, but it kind of goes in conjunction with this. Can you just verbalize what other signage will be placed on the laneway or leading up to the laneway that will complement this in order to make it a safer area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So there's some speed limit signs that are currently missing on Platten Boulevard through near Stevenson Point Road. We'll replace those signs. We're going to add no exit signs, and once you get past the point where there's no more roads that churn off, the road also narrows there, so we're going to put road narrow signs. We're going to improve the signage around the curve as well and put chevrons to make the curve more visible.
Thank you. And just further to that, with the data that we have on the laneway section of it, it shows that the average speed is about 35 kilometers per hour right now. So the residents on that deem that speed to be in excess overall. Now, understanding that not every car that goes by their house they're seeing as a speeder, but the ones that catch their eye, so looking at the 95th percentile and higher being 47 kilometers an hour, is deemed on that street by those residents as being too fast. Your recommendation is to put it to 40 kilometers an hour. Can you just talk about how, I know in our discussions back and forth in regards to this, you said that there's a model, and I'm not sure if it's a computer model that you punch numbers into or if it's just based off of the booklet. Can you just speak to how you decide on 40 versus 30 kilometers an hour?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So the Transportation Advisory Council has a tool that you can use. I explained that in the report that came with the GPA about all the criteria that it looks at in calculating what the speed should be. And so I use that methodology, which is what most municipalities use to set speed limits.
And just further to that, through you, Madam Mayor, given that the 95th percentile is not that far off from what, it's only 7 kilometers an hour off from what your recommendation is for lowering the speed limit, can we have it that within 6 months of the signage going up and the speed limit changing, that we can recount and see if there has been a reduction, at which time we can make an assessment if it's working or we need further infrastructure or signage or whatever needs to happen at that point?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I don't want to commit to 6 months. I can commit to when we do our traffic counts in 2020, we can do, which is sometimes done in the spring, sometimes in the fall. So we can do a count at that time to see if there's been a change since we installed the signs.
Okay, so we're looking at potentially a year before we recount to see if things have happened on this road?
That's correct.
Okay, maybe we could see it done so that because it is an issue here and there's concern on the road that we're not going far enough, whether it's a lack of understanding of the process or just a general concern over safety in that area. If we could have it done sooner than later would be ideal so that we can make, maybe, and hopefully it does work, but if it's not, then we can make the appropriate adjustments sooner than later, as it's on the table right now. Thank you.
Director Coleman, is there a possibility to have new, like you have for stop signs, so when you have a new speed limit, is it possible to do that? The other option would be maybe to have the police monitor it with their speed board signs right by the speed limit sign.
I'm trying to remember for a certain requirements, you do need to put up a new sign. So the new stop signs that are being bylawed this evening, there will be new signs put up for that. I will check what the OTM manual say about new signs for speed limits. I don't believe that you you would do that, and I would follow what the manual says.
Mm.
With respect to DRPS, we can definitely contact them and ask them to do some enforcement there. I don't think they will use their speed board signs, though. I think they'll only, those are the regional signs I'm thinking of. Does the DRPS have their own signs as well?
They do, and the region, the chief is saying yes to. They move them around, so maybe we could ask if, they would consider moving them to the new locations for speed
We
limits.
can ask.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Ross? Okay, anything else on that? Have a mover, please, for that bylaw. Councillor Ross, Councillor Kiesebrink, questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. No notices of motion. Under new business, Councillor Ross, you have something that you would like to bring forward? We read the motion and then we have a vote whether we're going to consider it tonight, and that has to be a 2/3. And then the motion will be read again, and we have to have a 2/3 majority to pass the motion. I don't think it's a big mind boggler, so please read your motion. We'll have a vote on whether we can consider it tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Put forward a motion that the Planning and Community Affairs Committee meeting scheduled for October 21st be canceled, and this would be due to the federal election, and that the 2019 Council, GPA, and PCA meeting schedule be updated to reflect the cancellation.
Okay. And now, would you like to make a motion that we deal with this tonight?
I would like to make a motion that we deal with
Okay,
it tonight.
seconder to deal with it tonight. Councillor Watton, all those in favor of dealing with this motion tonight? That's carried. Okay, motion, I don't think we need to read it again. I think everybody's clear on that. So are there questions or comments on that motion? Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question to the clerk. Is there are there any scheduled deputations, delegations, or time-sensitive reports for that evening?
JP?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. No, Director Heritage was consulted on this matter. He had one item that was able to move, so there's no concerns from that respect, and there's no delegations or anything scheduled for that meeting at this point in time.
Thank you. And is the proposal to move it to the Tuesday night or an alternate night, or are we just considering foregoing it altogether?
Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The resolution I heard from Councillor Ross is to cancel that meeting.
When would that, the one item be? Would it go to the next meeting, or would it go to GP&A or Council? Director Heritage, what is the timelines on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it could proceed to a meeting in November.
Pardon?
It could proceed to a meeting in November.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Guido? Okay. Anything else? All those in favor, 2/3 majority. Did I get a seconder? I'm sorry, I need a seconder. Councillor Brown. Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much for bringing that forward. Makes sense. Confirming bylaw. Motion to confirm the proceedings of tonight's meeting. Councillor Kiesebrink, Councillor Ross. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Guido, Councillor Brown, all those in favor? We didn't vote on the confirming bylaw. All those in favor of the confirming bylaw? Thank you. We're adjourned.